Hi, I'm Shan, and you are watching Life with Shan. This video is all about the 22 books I read in November of 2022. When I went into November, my goal was to read a lot of bigger books that I've procrastinated on reading because their page count was pretty big. And I didn't read a lot of what was on my TBR, but I still read quite a bit and I listened to a lot of audiobooks, so I'm still happy with my reading month of November. The first book I listened to in November was Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney, and I really enjoyed Daisy Darker. It was on an isolated item, it had family secrets, murder, and a big plot twist that was really good. I do go more into depth with these books in two videos. I have one video that is my mid-November check-in, and then I have another one which was 10 books in 7 days. So a lot of these books are reviewed in more detail there, but I will say I enjoyed Daisy Darker so much so that I picked up Alice Feeney's other book, Rock, Paper, Scissors, because I want to read that one as well. Then I listened to All Good People Here, which was really good. It goes back and forth in timelines. It's in a small town. There was a murder during the main character's childhood. It was a neighborhood girl was murdered, and then 20 years later there's another murder in the same town, and the main character, is back in town and she's now a journalist, and so she's trying to investigate a little bit more on the murder from her childhood and now the present day murder that's 20 years later. And there's a good plot twist in that one too. That one does have mixed reviews by a lot of people. I listened to it, which skews, in my personal understanding, is it skews my review because I review things differently based on how I listened it versus if I read it, because when you read a book you put more effort into it, I feel, so you're going to be more critical when reviewing it. I'm not sure if I would personally sit down and read All Good People Here, but it was a good audiobook. After listening to All Good People Here, I listened to Lauren Graham's Have I Told You This Already, which was phenomenal. Each chapter reads as kind of a short story because they are anecdotes about her childhood, her life in film, some about Gilmore Girls, and I just really appreciated learning more about Lauren Graham. I've listened to her other book as well that came out a few years ago, and so this just added a little bit more to my understanding of Lauren Graham and what it's like being a female in the filming industry, as well as being a starting actress from when she goes back and talks about her childhood. After Have I Told You This Already, I read Hester, which I was very excited for, and now that it's been almost a month since I read it, I'm realizing how disappointed I was. I'm not a big historical fiction person, so maybe that was part of why I didn't like it as much. There just wasn't as much drama as I thought there'd be. It didn't hold my attention. I was bored at times. I was upset with the characters quite a bit. I don't know if I'd recommend this one. If it's on your TBR, I say go for it. It might be your forte more than it was mine. If it's not, I don't recommend adding it to your TBR. After Hester, my fifth book in November was Five Survive by Holly Jackson. She also wrote A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and that one, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, is very Nancy Drew-esque. There's a murder in this community and this girl tries to solve it. I was going into Five Survive with that kind of mindset, but it's a much different read. One, it's not part of a trilogy. Two, it's a hostage situation, very thriller, not much Nancy Drew. There's a bunch of teenagers stuck in an RV and there's a sniper outside, and you just go from there. It's a hostage situation. I'm currently listening to Anxious People, so it is a little bit like that because of the hostage situation, but Anxious People is a lot more character driven, where Five Survive is very much so plot driven, thriller-esque, fast paced at times, and it kept me up at night for sure. I was reading it on my Kindle because I got through NetGalley and I could not put it down, literally to the point where I fell asleep while reading it because I couldn't get myself to stop reading it. So it was good. I recommend it if you like hostage situation books. After Five Survive, I read Acts of Violet, which was good. I got bored about halfway through, so I started skimming, but it was still a really good read. It's about Violet, who's this famous magician. She disappears. She literally has a disappearing act, and nobody has seen her. And each chapter goes between interview, community, feedback about where she could be, and the sister of Violet and how Violet's disappearance has impacted the family of Violet. And it was a good read. It was different. There's a lot of back and forth. I appreciated the mystery and the family coming together and the secrets slowly being developed throughout. What I really liked was the ending. It was not what I anticipated, and it was honestly kind of a cherry on top of the cake for me. So I recommend Acts of Violet if you haven't read it already. After Acts of Violet, I read The Seance Tea Party, which was a cute little graphic novel. I read it in about an hour. It is about a preteen who is in between wanting to still play pretend while her friends are moving on in life to crushes, drama, more personal, not personal, but more grown-up things. So the young girl who still wants to play pretend ends up befriending a ghost, and they kind of, both their characters develop throughout the story. It is a graphic novel. It's a mid-grade level read too. It was just cute and an easy, cozy comfort read for me. After Seance Tea Party, I read A Deadly Education, which was good. I started it last September, and I picked it back up on audio to finish it. I don't know if I'll be picking up the rest of the series. I might do it on audio through my library, but it was cute. I got it from Wicked Good Books in Salem, Massachusetts. So I really like that about my copy. When I buy books from vacation areas, I always ask the bookstore if they have a stamp of the book logo, of the store logo, so I could stamp the inside of my book. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes they give me weird looks, so I just ask for a bookmark. But I do like when they have the stamps, because now it's permanently in my book that I got it from Wicked Good Books, which makes me excited. Back to A Deadly Education. They're magical teenagers. They're sent to a school that has creatures in it that want to eat them. So it is literally a deadly education. They are fighting for their lives while trying to get an education. And then at the very end, when they graduate, it's basically a bloodbath. So that's graduation, is whether or not you survive the creatures. This one, the main character doesn't talk to many people. She's really isolated herself. She's not very friendly. She also doesn't want to get too attached because people are going to die. However, she does get a love interest who has saved her life a few times, and it goes from there. I mean, you can kind of come up with how it goes, but it's sweet. Not necessarily sweet. The romance is sweet, but the fantastical elements are pretty dark. This is lesson 1 of the Scholomance by Naomi Novik. After A Deadly Education, I listened to A School for Good Mothers, which I really enjoyed. It goes a lot into what society believes a mother should do and what a father should do. It also goes into the pressure we put on mothers and fathers, as well as how harsh parents can be on themselves. School for Good Mothers is a mom is deemed a bad mom. She is sent to the school to become a good mom. She loses custody of her child, and the school teaches you how to become a parent, essentially. Then you finish the book with all this different ideas of society. There are robots involved, which deterred me at first. And here's Callie. You want to say hi? Say hi. There were robots, which deterred me at first, but the robots were cute. They added a lot of insight to it. Yeah, I wouldn't categorize it as sci-fi. After School for Good Mothers, number 10 was Now Is Not the Time to Panic, which was a pretty good read. I did it on audio. If I recall correctly, it was a shorter audio, so it's probably a smaller book. Now Is Not the Time to Panic. Teenagers release a piece of artwork in their community, and it is not as perceived well, and then a lot of mayhem goes down, and then secrets are held, and then it goes to the future or present now, and these teenagers are now grown up. They're carrying the secrets of what they did around, and it talks a lot about mental illness, and it was just really interesting. I appreciated it. I don't know if I would reread it or if I would physically read it, but the audiobook was good. After Now Is Not the Time to Panic, number 11 was As Seen on TV. Has mixed reviews. It's a cute Hallmark romance. It does what it needs to do. She is a freelance writer in Manhattan, and she's tired of the dating scene there, and she wants to get a successful article. So she decides to go to the local small town who has a developer which is building condos in the town, and she wants a true Hallmark article for her magazine. However, that's not how it is. The small town is not upset about the development, and then she ends up getting a crush on the developer. Surprise, surprise. It's cute, it's sweet. A lot of people did not like the steamy scenes. I've said it before, I don't really read steamy scenes, so I can't attest to anything about that, but I thought it was a cute read, and there are a lot of Gilmore Girl references, which I always like. After As Seen on TV, I then read the character-driven, what I would say phenomenal Mary Jane. I have not read very many character-driven books, and I was surprised by how much I liked it. Essentially, it's in the 70s in Baltimore. Mary Jane is 14 or 15. She comes from a snobby, conservative, upper middle class family, and she's an only child. She then gets a job nannying for a neighbor or someone in her neighborhood, and they are the complete opposite. And she is realizing that you can have different views in life than what she was raised with. You can do things differently, that her parents aren't always the right or the wrong. And essentially this nannying job changes her views on life, which I think is an interesting thing to see. And I also really felt validated for 14, 15-year-old me, because I saw a lot of myself in Mary Jane. After Mary Jane, I listened to The Summer Place, and it's not for me. The Summer Place was not for me. It's a lot of infidelity, family drama, death. It just wasn't for me. Maybe if it was the summertime, I'd like it, but I personally would not physically read The Summer Place or buy it. I do know a lot of the authors' books are very similar, kind of like Eileen Hilderbrand. Yeah, if that's your forte, you might like The Summer Place. That's just not for me. But after The Summer Place, I did ACOTAR on audio. This was my second time getting through ACOTAR. The first time I physically read it was in July, and then in November I did the audiobook for it, and it was pretty good. I think it was better the second time around because I now understand the world a lot more, so I could appreciate the characters more the second time around, where the first time I was so focused on making sure I understand the world, but then I could really appreciate the romance behind it the second time. So I highly recommend ACOTAR if you haven't heard about it already. It's a Beauty and Beast retelling. Feyre is the main character, and she lives in the mortal world, but she accidentally kills a fairy. I don't know. I think it's called a fairy. But she accidentally kills a fairy, and she doesn't necessarily believe in them because it's always just legends, but it's not a legend, and the contract says that if a mortal kills a fairy, lives have to be exchanged to even out the count. So then they come to her world and they threaten to either kill her or bring her home with them to the fairy world. So she chooses to go with them to their world, and then it goes from there. I then listened to In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, which was a pretty good listen. It is a thriller, mystery, drama. It's a bunch of people go back to, I believe, their college reunion, and they all are trying to seem as though they're the best version of themselves, as most people do at their reunions. And apparently when they were in college, there was a murder of one of the people in their friend group. So at the reunion, secrets come out, fingers start getting pointed at, and you just go from there. It was good. It was kind of long for an audiobook, so the book might be kind of big. I'm not 100% sure. And I don't know if I'd physically read it, but it was a good audiobook. I would recommend it. And then after In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, I read You're a Mean One, Matthew Prince, which was cute. It was sweet. It got the job done. It was a holiday read, so most of those are just 3 to 4 stars, really, for me. Matthew Prince is a rich guy. He's a little selfish, snobby, spends a lot of his parents' money on something he shouldn't have, so his parents disown him and send him to his grandma's place, which is a small town, and then he meets this guy who is staying at Matthew Prince's grandma's. They try to work together to save the town. It's a cute little Hallmark type read. I mean, it's pretty predictable. After You're a Mean One, Matthew Prince, I listened to On Rotation, which was a romance read. It was really good, but one thing I really appreciated about On Rotation that I've mentioned in my 10 books in 7 days video is that it talks a lot about how Black doctors as well as Black patients are treated differently than white doctors and white patients. And that is something that I've heard about and learned about a little bit, but I appreciated that that was kind of gently put into this romance book as kind of a reminder and an educational way to spread awareness for it. I know I try as a white female to be an ally to those in minority groups and really to anyone that I can be an ally for. I believe we all matter and that we should all be treated equally, but I know for a fact we are not. And I also know that I used to be scared to say things or stand up for people because I was afraid of saying the wrong thing. But I honestly would rather say the wrong thing than not say anything at all. Because when you say the wrong thing, you learn from it. But if you're not saying anything at all, you're just not doing much for people. So read on rotation. You'll get a cute romance, but you'll also get more of an understanding of the biases in the medical field and how people are treated differently. It was a great read and an audiobook. I did half of it on my Kindle through NetGalley and then the other half on audio, and I just really appreciate that. It was written very well. After On Rotation, I read the romance novel of the year, Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. If you haven't read it yet or you haven't bought it yet, I suggest buying it just because the cover is adorable. It's very cute. I'm not a huge romance reader, but it has mystery. It's a grumpy small town guy meets a nice girl who has a lot of drama going on in her life, and he helps her out. And then there's drama between them. There's some criminal aspects to it. There's mystery. It was really good. I already pre-ordered the companion book that's coming out next year. I highly recommend Things We Never Got Over. After Things We Never Got Over, I hit book 19 and I listened to Diana, William, and Harry, which was a very good audiobook. I don't know if I'd physically read the book. I'm not much of a nonfiction physical reader, but the audiobook was phenomenal. I appreciated kind of the anecdotes in their childhood, getting a larger understanding of what Diana's life was like when she was part of the royal family and before she was part of the royal family. It also dove into a little bit more about William and Harry after the death of Diana, and that was a very good book. I highly recommend that. And Harry, I physically read and loved Spells for Forgetting. This book was phenomenal. I wish I had bought it, but I didn't. And it was so good. I love my library and how quickly they got it out for me. Spells for Forgetting, small town drama, magical elements, second chance love, adorable, well-written, atmospheric. It was perfect, honestly. I really appreciated this one. So August grew up on the island with Emery, and they were childhood lovers until one night there's a fire and their friend Lily shows up dead. So everyone points fingers at August, so August and his mom leave the island. Years later, August's mom passes away and she wants her ashes spread on the island. So August is back on the island. Feelings come back with Emery. People are accusing August of murdering the girl Lily and setting the fire, and then secrets come out. The truth is seen, and it was just such a good book. There's magical elements that are so easy to follow. This was everything I didn't know I needed. Thank you, Adrienne Young, for Spells for Forgetting. I will not forget this one. For Spells for Forgetting, I was able to fit in one more graphic novel or book, Mooncakes, which was a cute book. She is a witch and she used to have a crush on the werewolf, and they are finding out that werewolves have powers. There's a demon that needs werewolf magic to be destroyed, and they also do not have a great relationship with their family, so they go over to the witch, they go to the witch that they were close with growing up, and the witch and her family help them with their werewolf magic. It was cute. There's family drama, there's coming of age, understanding of life and maturity, and this was a good little, I think it was like a 40-minute graphic novel read. It was cute and a great way to end the month with my physical reads. After Mooncakes, I picked up one more audiobook, which was Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney, and I'm just gonna be blunt with it. It was not for me. I'm not big into all of those things. I have not consumed a Sally Rooney book yet, and this was my first one. It did dive into mental health phenomenally. She writes with such an understanding that I appreciated and felt validated with. However, it just felt like one big book of sexting. That's what it felt like. And I understand the themes behind it and how we are normal if people talked about sex more. It's just not what I thought it was going to be going into it. So it wasn't for me, but maybe you'll like it now that you know that it's a lot of sexting and sexy, spicy scenes. But the deeper meaning behind all of it was really intriguing, which is why I did not DNF it. But I'm glad I listened to it through my library instead of buying it and physically reading it. So that was the 22 books I read in November. I really enjoyed ACOTAR. Mary Jane is a must. Things We Never Got Over was a really good one. I really liked Daisy Darker, and those are the top ones for that month. I did not do most of my TBR books, but hey, I have future months, knock on wood, hopefully. And yeah, thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'm Shannon, and this is Life with Shan.